everybody, it's Gwen. Welcome back to my channel. Today, as you guys can tell from the title, I'm going to be telling you all about some of my favorite underrated bands that I believe deserve more love in this world. And I've been wanting to make this video for the past few months, so I'm super excited that I'm able to share a bunch of bands with you guys. I have about 7 or 8 bands I'm going to share with you, tell you guys a little bit about them, where they're from, what kind of music they make, give you guys, some info about if you like these kind of bands, you probably like them, tell you guys some of my favorite songs. In the past year or so, I've seen so many new bands, and I've been wanting to make this video because I think there are so many underrated bands that just deserve more love. So hopefully you guys can, find at least one of these bands to your liking if you're looking for some new tunes. So without further ado, let's get started. My first underrated band is Wilmette. If you're from Chicago, you definitely probably know who they are. Even if you're not a fan, you definitely know of them. Their band was named after a Chicago suburb, so if you're from Chicago, you definitely have at least heard of them. They only have around 13,000 monthly listeners on Spotify, and not many people talk about them online, so that's why I still consider them underrated. Obviously, living in Chicago, I hear their name more than if I lived, back in the East Coast or something. They're classic pop punk, they sing, they do scream a little bit too, and they have 2 EPs out, which I recommend both of them. I think they're fantastic. I've seen them a bunch of times live now as well, and they are very good live, especially Chicago shows. Obviously, hometown, they tend to go off here. They remind me of bands like Knuckle Puck and Neck Deep, so if you're into those bands, I recommend checking out Wilmette. My favorite songs by them are Where I Sleep, Anxious Bodies, and Winter Stay. Next band is Below. They're definitely one of the bigger bands on this list, but I think a lot of people just are not too familiar with their music. Even if they know them and heard of the name, they're just not really being talked about as much as I think they should be. And I fell in love with their song Sleepless because we had it on our Journey CD last summer, and it's a fantastic song. I love the video. They're definitely a mix of a lot of different genres. They scream and they sing, so they're kind of a good mix of pop punk and post-hardcore. They have 2 full-length albums out, and I would love to see them on tour sometime. I'm still kind of getting into them myself, I'm slowly getting into those other albums, so I just totally recommend them. Next band is The Homecoming. They're also from Chicago. Their bio on Spotify, by the way, is great. It says, "The Homecoming is really just 4 guys doing their best, playing some sad music that sounds happy. When not doing anything else, they enjoy long walks on the beach and avoiding crackheads on the CTA." Me. I relate. So I really like them. They're super sweet. I've met a few of their members, and I've seen them a bunch of times now, and they're really cool. And their genre is mainly pop punk. They have 2 EPs out, which are both fantastic. A lot of their songs are super catchy and got stuck in my head very quickly when I first started listening to them. They remind me of bands like State Champs, With Confidence, and Sleep on It. So if you like any of those, I definitely recommend you check them out. I think they're very easy to get into. Like I said, it's catchy, it's fun, it's definitely feel-good pop punk, so I definitely recommend it. Some of my favorite songs by them are Call Me Home, Summer Nights, and The Waiting Game. Next, we're going to turn to some hardcore bands. First one is Downswing. I think I've talked about them on this channel before. They're a hardcore band actually from Albany. They're from my hometown. They have a few little EPs and a bunch of singles out, but I'm hoping that they end up releasing their first full-length album soon. And they're very raw hardcore. I would definitely recommend them if you like bands like Rotting Out and See You Space Cowboy, those kind of raw hardcore bands. And the riffs and the drum beats that they have are amazing in their songs. They're fantastic live too. I saw them in Albany over the summer, and because it was obviously, a hometown show, it went off. People were literally going crazy. It was so much fun. And they have so much passion in their songs, and they really put their all into their live shows as well. So definitely would recommend them if you're looking for new hardcore bands. And my favorite songs by them are Hell, Cut the Brakes, and Blame. Next, another hardcore band is Born Anew. I also saw them at that same show, and they're very classic hardcore. You would definitely 2-step to these guys. People were 2-stepping at the show. I did some 2-stepping, which I don't really do much. When I go and see bands like Knocked Loose, I don't 2-step, I'm more mosh. But the beats for their songs are perfect 2-step beats, if you understand, if you get what I'm saying, So everybody was in the pit, not really pushing, but kind of just 2-stepping in place. But it was lit, it was a party. So they're really, really good. They use a lot of cool sounds in their songs, and for that I would compare them to bands like Knocked Loose and Gideon. But when it comes to, the beats, I'd say they're more on the two-step side and not necessarily in the moshing side. Though you obviously like could mosh to them, I think that the beats of their songs make it really good for two-stepping, but they use a lot of really neat sounds in their songs. They've been touring around the US. They were actually in Chicago like a week ago, and I couldn't go and see them, but I wish I could, and I'm very proud of them for actually touring around the US because, you know, bands like Downswing haven't gone that far yet. But I definitely recommend if they're coming to your city and you like hardcore, check them out. They're great. My favorite songs are Buried Youth, Cell of Mind, and Vile Filth. Next band is Selfish Things, and they've opened up for so many tours in the past like few months, you know, 6 months or so. So you've probably heard of them if you've gone on tours for like Don Broco, Boston Manor, you know, if you've seen other kind of pop punk bands, you've probably at least heard of them. And I found out about them because they opened for a bunch of people, and I really got into their music. They remind me of bands like Judah and the Lion and Heart Attack Man and Don Broco. Like if you mix all those bands together, I feel like you'd have Selfish Things. They're a very unique sounding band. They have like some spoken word elements. They remind me of Judah and the Lion with the weird like sounds that they use in a lot of their songs, but the beats of their songs remind me of Heart Attack Man, and a lot of their choruses are super fun and a lot of like kind of dance vibes, which is where I get Don Broco from, you know? So they're kind of a mixture of a lot of different things, but I recommend at least checking a few songs out. My favorite songs are 8147, Mulholland Drive, Blood, and Hangman. So I recommend checking those out to kind of get a taste of all the different kinds of songs they have. And who knows, you guys might like them. I'm sure they'll go on tour with other bands because I feel like they just open for everybody now, but I'm not opposed to seeing them. I really like it, and they have a very nice like stage presence as well. Next band is Microwave, and some of you guys might be like, hold on, they're like very big. They're big, like they played Riot Fest, I get it, they're going on their own like headliner tour this month, like I get it, they're big, but I feel like they're still underrated. Like I feel like I don't hear people talking about them enough. You know, they've toured in Europe, they've toured in the US, and I get it, but like people know them, but people just, like I said, they don't talk about their songs that much, and I feel like their shows never go off as much as I want them to, you know? So they're really cool too because they're a mixture of so many different genres, and they've got rock vibes, indie vibes, emo vibes, and they even scream in some of their songs. So I feel like this band kind of has something for everyone. They always seem to tour with a mixture of bands. Sometimes they'd be on a pop punk lineup, but sometimes they'd be on sort of a more hardcore, post-hardcore lineup. Like you can kind of shove them in with like any kind of band because they're a mixture of so many different things, and that's why I love them. I remember seeing them Warped Tour 2017, and like their lead singer, by the way, has such a beautiful voice and they sound incredible live, and the instrumentation is fantastic. Like watching them live is so fun because their guitarists are amazing and they're just very talented musicians. My favorite songs by them are Vomit, Stowall, and Lighterless, so I recommend checking out those. Next band is Dollskin, and once again, you've probably heard of them because they tour with a bunch of people. They're kind of like Selfish Things in the sense that they've been opening for a lot of people recently, and I've gotten to see them a few times because of that. They're from Phoenix, and they're an all-female group. They have 3 full-length albums out, and their last one came out last year, which I really got into. I don't really know who I'd compare them to. I was thinking about it a little bit, and I don't know, I feel like they're very unique. I would kind of compare them to bands like Sharptooth, but they're not as hardcore as Sharptooth, so I don't want to go like super far on being like, if you like Sharptooth, I would say you might like Dollskin. You know, they remind me of a lot of different bands. So they're kind of their own thing. They also kind of give me like anti-flag vibes. They have a song called Punch a Nazi that gives me, you know, hella anti-flag vibes. Not even just for the political, like, you know, topic, but also just the way that they kind of scream in that song and the way that the song goes. Reminds me a lot of Anti-Flag. My favorite songs by them are Empty House, Love is Dead and We Killed Her, and Mark My Words. The next underrated band that you all should check out is a band called Wolf Road, which I just actually talked about, I think, in my most recent video. I think I mentioned the name. This is the band that, you know, I sell merch for. So I'm a little biased because, like, I love them a lot and I sell their merch and I go to every show that they have, you know. But they're really super, super talented, and, you know, I had to put them on this list because they are a fairly new band in the terms of the fact that they just released their first EP at the end of last year. They had their debut show back in November of 2019. They've only had about 5 or 6 shows so far. So, you know, they're still early on in their career in that sense, and that's why I think it's so important for me to talk about them now, because they're so talented and they deserve all the love and support. And like I said, like, yes, I'm biased, but like, They're great. They're fantastic. I could see them touring with so many other bands, you know, in the near future. It's hard to place them genre-wise because in their first EP, Nowhere Around You, there's a mixture of so many different genres. Like, there's songs like Oakton, which are very pop-punk, but then you have songs like Winthrop, which are very, you know, hardcore, like post-hardcore sounding. So a lot of their songs on that EP kind of do an in-between of genres. There's parts that sound pop-punk, they scream a bit, you know, there's a lot going on. And that's why it's great, because I think that they're another one of those bands where whether you like pop-punk or post-hardcore, something in between, you can probably find at least one song on their EP that you'll like. You know, Oakton was the big single, that's definitely the more pop-punk single, but if you like more hardcore stuff, they scream in Dogwood, they scream in Winthrop. Like, there's a bunch of other songs as well that you guys might like. So I definitely recommend checking out this EP. It's fantastic. They're from near Chicago, so like if you're able to go to one of their Chicago shows, like please do it. Please support them because they're super talented. My favorite songs are Dogwood, Winthrop, and Oakton. Also, if you're ever at one of their shows, come say hi to me at merch because I'll be there selling their shirts. The next underrated band is Meet Me at the Altar, who I just saw for the first time this week because Wolf Road was opening for them, so I was there, and they're an all-female pop-punk band from the East Coast. I don't know, I could compare them to bands like Yours Truly and also Dollskin a bit, but their instrumentation reminds me so much of Belmont. Like, a lot of their songs remind me of Belmont in terms of the instrumentation and the guitar riffs and things like that. I think they're very unique in a lot of ways, so I would definitely recommend checking them out. They have 2 EPs out currently, and they sing, they scream in their songs. They have so much energy live. Seeing them live the other day was so much fun. They are so talented. Watching the drummer on stage and the guitarist, like, they're just very talented musicians. And my favorite songs by them are Sane, Tyranny, and How Could You Ever Lie. My second to last favorite underrated band is Rarity, and once again, I'm sure y'all have heard of Rarity. They're a Canadian pop-punk band, but I feel like a lot of people know of them, and then like once again, really aren't too familiar with their stuff or like don't talk about them enough. Like I just don't see their names circulating on Twitter enough, and they've been around since at least like 2015. So like they should be more well known, I think, at this point. And I also just wish they had more fans, because every time I'm at one of their shows, even if it's like their show or like they're one of the, you know, later openers, there's like never enough people bopping, and then the ones that do know them don't really go very hard. Like I saw them open up for Capstand back in the fall, and that was my second or third time seeing them, and like there just weren't enough people going off. And I saw them open for Belmont, and you know, that was the time I got to sing into the mic and all that, but like same sort of thing, there were like 4 people. Granted, that was in Albany, so you know, Albany crowds kind of suck, but like even here in Chicago, I'm like, come on y'all, like Rarity represent. Apparently I have to go to Canada to see a Rarity show where people actually go off. Like I've heard hometown Rarity shows are something else, and I want to experience that, because I haven't really seen a Rarity show where like the crowd has been as into it as I have, you know? And that's no hate to the band. The band is fantastic live. Like they're doing everything they need to do. They're getting people to, you know, jump up and down. But like people just, I don't know, not enough people are singing along and like bopping to them. And they deserve so much. They're fantastic. I would compare them to bands like Pacific and Trash Boat. Honestly, like a very raw pop punk sound with a bit of screaming in it as well. My favorite songs are Orchid, Hollow, and Stranger. And my last favorite underrated band is Jetty Bones. They definitely have a bunch of like super fans, and maybe that's because like I'm kind of friends with them on Twitter, like I know who their super fans are, and they have those super fans. But they don't really have any like casual or like in-between fans. Like I wish more people would talk about how talented they are and how amazing their lyrics are. And if you didn't know, they're a female-fronted band from Ohio who write emo lyrics, but also a lot of uplifting and positive ones, and kind of like what it's like to come out of a dark place, that kind of thing. The front girl for the band is Kelsey, and that's kind of the face of the band. She is the face of the band, you know, it's more her and her friends, but I admire the entire band. A lot of people really just, you know, they single out her, and I get it, she is the real face of the band, but I think that everybody in the band is fantastic. I love the bass player, I love the drummer, like I love them all. They're all great, and they're a fantastic live band too. A lot of just really good vibes at their shows, so much fun to sing along to. A lot of their songs tell stories about certain memories that Kelsey has had or the band members have had. Some of their songs are definitely more pop punk, and others are more like indie or even like folk songs. I would argue that like the first EP that they released definitely had some folk sounding songs, and they're great. I love them. I've loved every single song they've released. Currently, they have 3 EPs out, but I believe their first ever debut full-length album is gonna come out this year, and I can't wait. I would compare them to bands like Beach Bunny, if you know who they are, who I've never talked about on my channel, but they're more, you know, once again, kind of like an indie alternative rock female fronted band. You know, like I would compare them to Beach Bunny, who have like 2 million listeners on Spotify, so you probably have at least heard of them, but that's what I compare them to. And my favorite songs by Jetty Bones are No Lover, Coasting Lines, and Jogging. Well, there you guys go. Those are some of my favorite underrated bands. Please check some of these bands out if any of them sounded of interest to you. They all, like I said, are underrated and deserve more love and support, so I would recommend it. Please leave a comment down below telling me what bands that you guys think are underrated, because as usual, I'm always looking for new music, and I'd love to hear your opinions and, you know, hear what underrated bands you guys are into, because I'm always trying to expand music taste. You know, we're here recommending things to each other, helping each other out. It's the best. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Be sure to give it a big thumbs up if you did, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!